increases, and when you get to the cap of that culture, which increases the more times you have, you get to adopt social policies that help you in distinct ways. So, for example, liberty is great for expansion. Tradition is great for getting high populations, and well, I mean, that also disagrees with Malinowski, because traditions, the function of traditions may not necessarily be for high population. They may actually be for population control, but really the basis of this is that the way that the game has implemented culture is directly against what Malinowski believes. Right now I'm researching liberty and commerce, so I want to be a very quickly expanding nation and a very wealthy nation. And if I have more social policies than, say, India or England, my nation is distinctly better than theirs in that regard. And I don't think Malinowski would agree with that. I don't think he would say that there can be distinctly better cultures. But the game certainly supports that. And that actually ties into one of the victories. There are 4 different ways to win. Domination, which is kill every other nation. Diplomacy, which is to make the United Nations and have the group vote among all the nations on who is the best nation. And if they vote for you, you win. Scientific victory, where you win by making it to the moon first. Get the space race. And finally, a cultural victory. So if you win a cultural victory, the impact that it has, that it gives you at the end of the game, is that you will never be forgotten among time. But the impact for this, for Malinowski, is that if you win a cultural victory, it is saying that your culture was distinctly better than every other one's in the game. And I don't think he would agree with that. So the next thing I want to talk about is tile improvements. Now, I mean, I'm sure you already know where I'm going with this, but for example, we're going to look right here. This is iron. There is an iron mine there. Well, not an iron mine, there's just a bunch of iron in the ground there. It is worthless. I don't have it in my territory, so I wouldn't be able to mine it anyway. So if we're going to use a different example, why don't we talk about something in my territory? Here is there's a lot of forest here. It is all, if I turn on, yield icons, we can see I get one. If I were to put a citizen to mining that, I would get 1 food, 1 production, 1 gold every turn. For example, if we look at like the plains rather, I would get 1 food, 1 production every turn. This is kind of bad. It's not very helpful. Getting only one of those things is really not useful. But this right here is a wheat that I built a farm on, and you can see I'm getting 5 food, 1 production, and 1 gold. So I get distinctly better rewards for building things, improvements on the tiles that I have. Now this ties into 3 people, Locke, Smith, and Marx. Because the land is far less valuable for improvement. There's one exception that I did want to bring up. For example, this is the Behringer crater. I cannot make an improvement on the Behringer crater. So for that one, there's another one right here, Mount Fuji. For those ones, you can't make an improvement on them. They're natural wonders, so they don't get any better anyway over the course of the game. But for the most part, tiles distinctly get better once you build improvements on them. So what I wanted to quickly look at was which of the 3 does the game agree with most? So the first thing is that when I assign a citizen to do something, and I'm going to demonstrate this by looking here, I can do citizen management, and the ones with green icons are which ones are being that I'm producing things on right now. So I can potentially take one person out of there and say, no, I want you to work that instead, because I want more production. So as the leader, I pay my citizens in food every turn. Every citizen requires 2 food every turn. So right now, I've got 10 citizens here, so I need to be getting 20 food every turn just to keep a stable population. Extra food goes towards creating more citizens. I don't actually pay my citizens anything they produce. All of the production, all of the gold, it goes straight to me. Now that fits with Marx because it's sort of estranging them from the products of their labor. Because when they produce iron, I'm getting 4 iron a turn. Well, I'm actually getting 6 iron a turn, but I'm using 2 of it. But when I'm getting iron or gems or wheat, all of that is only going towards what I decide it needs to go for. They are getting paid however much it is they need to live, and only that. That fits very well with Marx. It also fits very well with Smith because I am paying them a wage. For example, I have some units down here. These offensive units, they don't produce anything, but I do still have to pay for them. I pay to create them, and I pay them a wage every turn. You can see up here, 10 gold right now is being spent on unit maintenance. That means that every turn I'm paying those guys 10 gold. But after that I can do whatever I want with them. They have sold the products. That's Smith and Marx at the same time. They tie very well together. So whenever I argue for one of them, I'm sort of arguing for both. But then the next big thing about that is right now you can see I have a lot of areas that I haven't improved. But if I were to look at a place that's a little more bustling, like right here. Oh, that's not actually true for that one, but I can actually improve more than I have active. That was the main point. Maybe this one. Oh yeah, this one shows that. I have a diamond mine right here that is not getting anything. I could put someone on it right there, but now I'm not getting anything from this lumber mill. I have improved more than I can actually farm. Locke would say that is wrong, that I am doing a great disservice to everything. I want to actually put that back because... But, unfortunately, Locke has no say here. This game does not agree with Locke in that we should not be improving, working on more than we're actually able to. So some of these areas are ultimately going to be wasted until my population gets bigger and I split it up more. So when I was thinking about this, I would say that the game most heavily supports Marx, but it's also very supportive of Smith's ideology. Mostly, they're very, very heavily tied together, but most heavily supports Marx in its view of tile improvements. But the next thing with tile improvements that I want to talk about is that you'll notice when I've been switching it around, this is a mine. I can take someone off that mine and say, no, you are now a farmer. No, actually, over here, this fisherman, no, you are a lumberjack now. Anyone can do ultimately anything, because I said so. I told them to, and so they have to. This sort of supports a little bit of the progression that a lot of different people that we've talked about have, where we see, like in the Trobrand Islanders, that anyone can basically do anything, though they have some specialization, where I will have someone who I want always to be on the mine, because I really find that mining important to my progress. But overall, anyone can do anything. However, where this sort of splits... one before I get to that, it's also sort of pro-Marx, almost, in that you don't have a ton of specialization, it would seem. But this is where I actually have to stop and say, well, no. Because while any citizen can do anything, in the late game, it very much encourages you to specialize. I don't know if I have enough gold to... I do, okay. So I'm going to buy a workshop here just to demonstrate. In Paris, this workshop provides me plus 10% to all production and plus 2 production. That is distinctly better than having someone in this forest. So I'm going to put someone in a workshop. Because it is far better than any other option. There's no comparison. So ultimately, is actually, even though it would seem that anyone can do anything, so there's a loss of specialization that Marx would say is ultimately going to lead to communism, it doesn't. Because as the game progresses, the specialists are distinctly better than anything you can get from the land. And so what ends up happening is the land becomes purely a tool for you to get enough food so you can have a bunch of specialists. So this goes directly in the face of Marx. But the primitives, the barbarians, actually don't do this. So this is also sort of against Malinowski, where if Malinowski's idea was right of sort of these other cultures, well, not right, he was more like just talking about one specific culture, but we would expect to at least see in some cases that barbarians had multiple roles that they could fill, and that they would do some things like farming, like etc., or even in the case if they were more like the Bedouin society, we would expect that there would be some people who specifically went out to like gather food or hunt, but we don't see that. Instead, they're mostly just running around attacking your plains and pillaging them, and they all do that. There's no really specialization, because there's only one job for them. It's a very simplistic view of what their cultures would look like. Like I said, I'm sure Malinowski would find that very, very disgusting. No, this is the cultures are not simplistic, but the game does find them to be very simplistic. Then the last major topic I wanted to talk about was foreign relations. Right now you can see when I click on someone else, I have the option to declare war, which is probably not a good idea, especially when we're friendly. To trade, to make demands, which only really works if you're trying to assault them, discuss something like declaring war or trade agreements, or goodbye is just to leave. You can also see she's friendly with me. Now, certain actions will cause certain effects on other people. Like, for example, this guy doesn't like me. Because I've built a bunch of cities right along his border, which is preventing him from expanding. So, one of the biggest impacts of having these interactions with the foreign relations is that you get a more crazy hardcore. Sometimes I will get notifications from other countries just so that they can say, you know, your military is looking like really bad. It looks pretty crappy. And that's it. They're not making a trade agreement. They just wanted to insult my military. Other times, I'll talk to someone, like it just happened here not too long ago, so I'm wondering if you'll do it again. Your empire is famed for its strong economy. Perhaps one day you might be willing to share some secrets with a friend. Everyone is comparing each other to everyone else. And that encourages you to try and be the best at it. And so you get into a race with everyone else, because if you have the best economy, people are more likely to trade with you. If you have the best army, people are less likely to try and fight you. And so you are always comparing yourselves to other people. So you get a lot of amour-propre in there, which definitely supports Rousseau, if we're assuming that at least the leaders of these countries are individuals. Also, when I already mentioned this, but if you captured a city, they'll do whatever you command them to do once you've sort of gotten past the resistance phase, which is very supportive of Hume if you're at war. But one of the interesting things about this is that you actually don't actually want to capture cities all that much, because you actually don't want to go to war all that much. So this actually ties really well into Hobbes and Thucydides, because alliances. So, for example, I can go to. I'm gonna discuss. Shall we make a joint declaration of friendship? He doesn't want to, but if we, that's because he's an AI. But if we were to, that would actually be very good for both of us. There's ways in the game to try and discourage fighting, because if you were to fight, you're putting a lot of resources into your military, into war, that you would have been able to put into other things, and you don't really want to do that. But why don't you want to fight is more than just like the competition and things like that. Because with how much I have, with how big my nation is, I could very easily just destroy India, be perfectly fine. But I don't want to. The reason I don't want to is because if I did that, I would lose trust with England. I would lose trust with Japan. And any other nation that may have met me. because